Tube lights are very unique and useful in that they could just go places and do things that other lights cannot. You can often even just keep them visible in your frame and they look really cool as kind of special effects, especially for things like music videos. I've used and reviewed a few tube lights in the past and overall not been hugely impressed for a few different reasons. Some are expensive. I have some that need a cable to power them and that can be annoying depending on how you have them set up. Some of them had poor light quality. Yet again, that doesn't really quite matter as much if you're just using them in the background for accent lights or effects and not key lights. But today I have the MT1 from Soonwell and I decided to review this one because it stood out to me as being fairly new and unique, or at least I guess you could say full featured. I've used a flex panel LED from Soonwell for a while now and I've been very happy with it in many ways. On top of that, at just $120, this tube light comes in as a great value for what you get with it. And I can say right now, the quality, the flexibility, and the ease of use is definitely there. So let's get into it. Hey, what's up? I'm Scott and welcome to my channel. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more no-nonsense tutorials and reviews. So I'm not exactly going to do an unboxing here, but I made some notes of my impressions and things that I tested as I opened this up and went through it. So I'll talk about that and show that to you just while I'm going through my notes. So first up, it comes in a pretty nice and protective form-fitting hard shell case that's including a removable shoulder strap. I like when things are removable just in case you don't need it there. And when you open this up, you can see that everything has its place. There's a couple little straps here to hold the tube and also this little mini tripod in there. There's a pocket for a few other accessories and we'll take those out and look at them quick now. So of course you do get this little mini tripod here and it's not the best quality mini tripod. It's all plastic, but it doesn't need to be anything special. It's just a little accessory and it will get the job done. If you wanted to hold this in your hand or put it on a tabletop, for example, it's a nice little accessory to have. You've got this like lanyard style strap here, which does have a screw thread that you could screw into the end of the tube. And then if you wanted to just hang it from somewhere, you could do that as well. So that's another option. You've got your USB-C cable, and this does charge by USB-C, and it's quick charge 3.0 compatible, and you can use it while you're charging it, although they say that if you're using it while you're charging it, of course it will charge slower, and then if you turn it off, it'll charge faster. And then there's the tube here, but I do also have this other accessory on it here, right on the end that just screws in there. This is just a very simple kind of double-sided 1/4-20 screw thread adapter, so you can actually connect two or more of these tubes together if you want to make it longer. And it also does have this screw thread on the side here, so if you screwed into one end, you could then screw this onto a clamp or a light stand or something like that to mount it as well. The tube itself does have screw threads on both ends, so I'm just going to keep this attached to one end at pretty much all times so that way it's there and I don't lose it. And I do still have another screw thread to use if I want that as well. I'm not sure how well you can see this on camera, but around these screw threads there is also some rubber material, so that way it will be screwed in a little bit more securely when you have something in there. So that is nice. And also on one end you have this little flap here, and that's where the USB-C charging port is. So if you're going to keep this screwed into there, you don't want to have it screwed into this end because you need access to that port. The little cover on here is a little bit difficult to pry open. You got to get your nail in there and pull it open. It was more difficult the first time, but again, this is actually waterproof, which we'll talk about in a second. So, you know, a nice, tough, secure little flap there is expected. So like I said, this is actually waterproof up to 16 feet, which is really cool. They say that, you know, it's perfect for diving, scuba diving, or snorkeling, things like that. Any time that is going to get wet, obviously, if you're shooting near a pool or in a pool, if you're at the beach, then this could be something that could be very useful. I personally probably won't use that all that much, but it's nice to know that this is completely waterproof up to 16 feet. It's going to open it up to be used in a lot more situations. Also, this is a Rgbw LED, which means that it has two types of white light chips on here, typically a cool and a warmer one. So that way you're not really making any sacrifices. You have one set that's dedicated to that cool light and one set that's dedicated to that warm light. Typically, it will give you a better output, a better quality than a light that's just Rgbw, because again, you have more lights dedicated to that bi-color mode. Speaking of that though, you actually do have a crazy wide range of white light on this. You have two white light modes actually, CCT mode and CCTS, which is actually wide. I'm not sure why they didn't call it CCTW, but The standard CCT mode goes from 2600K to 6000K, already a very good range. You've definitely got both tungsten and daylight covered within that range, but CCTS mode will go from 1600K up to 20,000K. Now, there are some sacrifices in that mode. You don't get as fine of a control over the color temperature, but as you go up to those higher color temperatures, the actual difference in numbers doesn't make that significant of a difference in the light color anyway, so it's a little bit more of a rough adjustment in that mode. And also you don't get the green magenta shift adjustment, which you do have in standard CCT mode, which is very useful, so you can match it to existing lights or other lights that you're using, which may have a slight magenta or green cast. You can dial this in to match that as well in the standard mode. In CCTS mode, you don't get that adjustment, but this does also have a slight green or magenta shift when you are in that mode. So in the standard mode, you get better quality, better control, but in the wide mode, you have a wider range. The CRI and things like that are actually not bad, but you do have a bit more of a color cast in the green magenta direction. Finally, one more quick note before we turn this on is once again about the battery. It has a built-in battery, again, charged by USB-C. It is Quick Charge 3.0 compatible, so if you need to charge it up between shoots during a break, then you should be good to go to get it back up to a reasonable amount in that time. But it does have a 7,650 milliamp hour or 27.5 watt hour battery, and you can use it for about almost 3 hours on full power. And there's one more thing I want to talk about here, and just the fact that this is really nice quality. Now again, I've used a handful of these, cheap and expensive, and this is very nice quality. It's cheaper than most of them that I've tried before, but it does not feel like it. It's got a little weight to it. This is, I believe, 35 centimeters long, and it's about 500 grams, I believe. And it definitely feels like it's got some weight to it, but it is very well made. And also this does have a magnet built into the back of the body. It is on the side with the screen and the controls, so if you're using that magnet, you're not going to have access to that, which is a bit of a bummer, but it does have a very strong magnet built into this. So even on a round C-stand, for example, the pole of a C-stand, the magnet is strong enough to hold this up securely. Again, even though it's not the lightest tube in the world, it's a good 500 grams, that magnet will hold this up as long as you're using the whole magnet. So turning this on, I apologize in advance. I know that you're not going to be able to see the screen on the camera. I'll put some B-roll where you can see it in a little bit more detail, but there is a very nice screen on here, and I was happy to see that although the text is small, there's a good amount of information on that screen. It's very clear. It's not fuzzy or anything. It's not bright, but it is clear and easy to see. They have the battery level is a small icon to indicate that. You have an icon to indicate if the Bluetooth is on or off. You can see your mode, and when you're in CCT mode, for example, you've got your indications for your intensity, your percent. Right now it's at 100%. You've got your color temperature, you've got your green or magenta shift, all of that information right there. And you've got fairly simple controls. These buttons all feel very nice too. They're nice and rubbery, and they feel good to the touch. They click confidently and easily. Now you've got two arrows, which are pretty self-explanatory to make adjustments. You've got an M button, and this is going to switch between which parameter you are adjusting. So right now it's highlighted on CCT. If I push right and left, it's going to switch into HSI, into CCTS, which is that wide mode, into my Rgbw settings, into my effects, into my memory settings, into some other additional things, which we'll talk about in a second, and then back around to CCT. So if I push that mode button, I can then jump down to the intensity, and I can adjust that from 100% down to 1%. And you can go in 1% increments with this, either by clicking once at a time, or if you hold it down, it will start slow and then go faster. So it's easy enough to make big adjustments or small adjustments. And it is good also that it doesn't loop around from 100% back down to 1, so you don't accidentally go past what you're trying to aim for. Very easy to make adjustments. Your CCT, your color temperature, here you can go again in regular CCT mode from 2600K to 6000K, and it goes in 100K increments. And again, it has that same functionality where you can click one by one, or you can hold it down and it will start slow and then speed up to make those larger adjustments. Finally, you've got your green and magenta shift adjustments, and you can go in 0.01 increments from 0.1 plus 0.1 down to minus 0.1, and that will again help to adjust this to match other lights or existing light which may have a bit of a green or magenta shift to it. Now going on through the modes, next up you've got HSI, and again you have both HSI, which is hue, saturation, intensity, and RGBW adjustments in here. So you can control this by dialing in either way, which is great. I think that HSI in most cases is a little bit more intuitive, a little bit faster. What it is, you can again go in and adjust your intensity from 0 to 100%. You can adjust your HSI value, which is in degrees, from 0 to 360. And as you can see, as I cycle through that, it's going to go through all those different colors. I don't know, it's probably blown out, so you might not be able to see it really that accurately. And then you can adjust your saturation from 0 to 100%, again in 1% increments. Jumping over into the CCTS, the wide mode, the only difference here is that you don't have control over that green magenta shift. And again, it's more of a coarse adjustment. So if I go through from 1600K, which it's at now, all the way up to 20,000K, you can see the adjustments are a bit larger. So 1000K increments at the moment, and then it jumps down to 500K. So at the lower settings, you do have a bit more of a fine control. And as you go higher, it jumps up in bigger chunks. Then you've got your Rgbw settings. So again, you've got your intensity adjustment, as well as you can dial in individually the amount of red, green, and blue, and white. And from what I found, as you dial up the white, it just basically dials down the saturation. So you can see here, red is at 34% right now, but if I dial up the white, it's going to little by little kind of get desaturated. So then you've got your effects mode, and I'm not going to go through all of these effects. They have a bunch. I think it was 20 that are built into here. There are a couple of new ones, but my biggest takeaway, as you can see kind of right now, this is supposed to be just white cycle, but this goes for all of the effects, lightning, things like that, police car. It's a very steady effect. It doesn't have any irregularity to it. It's just like this right now. It's just pulsing. Oh, let's go to fireworks, for example. You can see fireworks here. It's just a very regular repetition of that firework effect. So this is not the best that I've seen in terms of special effects. I personally don't care. I rarely use that. But for things like cop car, for things like fireworks, for things like lightning, I don't like this regularity, this repetitiveness. I like a little bit more of an irregular pattern to give it a little bit more reality, I guess you could say. So that is a little bit disappointing, but you can adjust, again, the intensity and the speed. And this is the fastest that it goes right now. So for fireworks, for example, if I dial this slower, it can go quite a bit slower with longer intervals in between it, in longer fades of the light, as you can see. So next up we have the memory mode, and now you can save up to 4 settings in this memory mode, which is very nice. So all you have to do to save that setting is when you have everything dialed in, just push the power button, which has this little arrow below it, just push that and it will save it into one of these 4 slots. And then when you come into memory mode, you can dial through those and you can recall them again just by pushing that power button to choose it. And you can see on screen what those parameters are for each of those before you select it. So if you want to say, I can't remember what was slot 3, what was slot 2, you can see right on screen, slot 2 is 100% intensity, 3200K with 0 green magenta shift in CCT mode. So I think generally this is implemented fairly well, but when you do press this power button to save whatever setting it is, it shows you a little indication that you pushed it and that it saved it, but it doesn't tell you which slot it went into. It doesn't give you any confirm screen. So I do wish that they at least had a screen where you could confirm that you're saving it, just so that way you don't accidentally save a bunch and overwrite what you already had saved. Or so you could decide, I want to go in and replace setting 1 with this new setting. I wish there was just a little bit more control when you do decide to save it. Finally, we've got those other options that I talked about. This is called on off in the menu on here. And you have an option for Bluetooth and GS. GS is gravity something, I forget exactly, but it's about gravity. And what that is that actually this screen itself, the display on the screen, will automatically flip if you have this facing this way or if you have it facing this way. So that's pretty cool. If you have it mounted somewhere upside down, I guess you could say, the screen will automatically flip so you can see it normally, which is really great. But if you don't want that to happen, you can also go in and turn that off. So again, that level of control, but also that level of functionality is really, really nice. Bluetooth, you can turn on or off. They say open or closed, but that's going to be for the app. And as far as I can tell at the moment, I can only find an app for Android, and I don't use Android. I can't find the app for iPhone, so I can't talk about it. If I do find it and it is something worth making a video, then I will make a separate video to talk about it. If it's just a standard app, then I'm not going to bother because it's nothing so special, but if it is worth talking about, I will make another video of that. And that's about it. But I'm very impressed with how easy and intuitive this is to use, as well as how simple the controls are, how much information you get on the screen, as well as how much control you have over different settings in here. Very impressed with the build quality of this, the fact that it's waterproof, the fact that it has a strong magnet in there, and it has Bluetooth control over hopefully an iPhone app in the future. But it's made really well. It has a very nice carry case, and it comes in at just $120. It's not the brightest light in the market, but you don't always need a bright light. Sometimes these are just for some extra practical effect, something in the background, or for a little kicker light or something like that. And in a lot of cases, I think that this brightness is going to be enough. You can use that little adapter to screw multiples of these together, 2 or 3 of them together, if you do need more output or more size. I think it's good, but this is something that's going to be very easy to bring along with you, to throw just under the seat in your car, and you can literally use it anywhere, again, because it's waterproof. It's got a magnet built into there. What more could you want? Well, of course, you could want good light quality, not only that it's made well and it works well, but that it puts out some good light, and I haven't actually talked about that in detail yet. So I'll put some specs up on screen now, some detailed specs that I checked with my Seikonic C800 color meter. And I'll talk about SSI and CRI, things like that. But generally, I found that this does very well, actually, even at lower intensities where sometimes LEDs can suffer a little bit. But more importantly to me is the fact that the color temperature readout on the screen here is actually very accurate to what the actual output is. Sometimes you'll get LEDs that say 5600K and they're actually putting out 6000 or 5000, or sometimes even a bigger difference from what it displays on the screen. But this seemed to be fairly accurate, which I do appreciate. It just makes it easier when you're trying to match multiple lights, or when you're trying to match the color temperature that you have set on your camera. So that's about it. Hopefully that could give you enough information to make your decision, but I would say that if you're looking for a tube light, absolutely go out and grab one of these. If you need something larger, grab 2 of them and screw them together, because this works really, really well. So before I ramble too much, we'll wrap this up. But if you have any questions or comments, please do let me know down below, and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. But otherwise, if you like this video or found it helpful, please do consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing if you haven't already, share, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.